Hello everybody! Welcome to Chapter 13 of Price Analysis, a fundamental approach to the study of commodity markets. In the next few chapters we're going to be talking about commodity crush spreads, and in particular Chapter 13 covers the soybean crush spread. I really like teaching about commodity crush spreads because when you think about a set of commodities in a productive process, you really understand how their prices are connected as inputs to the process and outputs to the process. And this is definitely true in the case of the soybean crush. So for a soybean crusher, their business is to buy soybeans and crush it and turn it into meal and oil. So we'll talk about that process in a little more detail in a second. But remember when we were talking about the soybean balance sheet that about half of U.S. soybeans go to domestic crushing. So this is a really big part of the soybean market, especially in the United States. So what you see in the picture here is actually all three commodities. There's sort of a bed of the whole soybeans, and in the scoop is the soybean meal, and in the beaker is full of soybean oil. So currently the most prevalent method for crushing soybeans uses a solvent to extract oil from the soybean. So the soybeans are pre-treated and then crushed and flaked to destroy the cell walls, so the solvent can get in there and kind of interact with the oil in the cells. So in that way they can basically extract the crude soybean oil from all of the solid matter, and then the crude oil can be processed and refined to remove other solvents and compounds that give it unpleasant odors and smells. So then it becomes a product that we could use for human consumption. Then the soybean flakes that are left are ground into a meal, and that is really high in protein, and so soybean meal is a really high value additive to livestock feed. So I've got here several pictures that are provided by the United Soybean Board, thankfully under the Creative Commons license so that I can include them here. And the United Soybean Board is a marketing agency in the United States, and they're basically their goal is to develop markets for U.S. soybeans. So this is sort of promotional material to that end, to explain to end users what it is that their product is and what it's good for. So the picture that's prominent here on the top are those soybean flakes that we talked about earlier. And if we scroll down a little bit, that is the soybean meal that would be fed to livestock. So the picture that you see here has soybean meal in a jar on the left, and then just next to that is some really orange looking jar that's labeled crude oil. So when they first extract the oil from the crushed soybeans, it's this orangish color, and then they refine it and bleach it and it becomes a little lighter. And that middle jar is probably what you would see if you went to the grocery store and picked up some soybean oil to use for your home cooking. And then if they take that refined soybean oil and separate the glycerin from the rest of the oil, you have what's effectively biodiesel. Biodiesel is effectively nothing but soybean oil that's had the glycerin removed from it. Then you've got the end products from the oil. So it turns out that crushing yields are fairly consistent at 11 pounds of oil and 44 pounds of meal per bushel of soybeans. And those yields can vary a lot because you could breed a soybean to be higher on the oil or lower on the oil. But we'll basically assume these proportions when we go forward and think about the price analysis, and particularly the crush spread when we go forward. So soybean oil is primarily used as a livestock feed, and beef cattle, dairy cattle, hogs, and poultry all use soybean meal in their feed rations. And it's really prized as a livestock feed because it provides a good source of protein, and particularly because when you combine cereal grain like corn with soybean meal, it provides a complete slate of essential amino acids that's particularly important for hogs and poultry to be able to efficiently build muscle. Alright, so let's get down to the good stuff. Let's talk about the relationship that we think should follow